Hello, everyone, and welcome to Breathe Motivation. It is Thursday. This is episode 133. So glad to join you today. I hope you guys are having a great week, and I hope you guys are enjoying everything you are doing. My name is Anthony Astor. I'm the host and founder of Breathe Motivation. So glad to be here with you today. So yesterday, we talked about some great things. We talked about regret, right? I think it's important for us to understand that, a lot of times in life we go through, different things. And, as we go throughout life, we are so fearful of, really accomplishing certain things or even getting started in certain things. But, like we talked about yesterday, it's important for us to, I know, I always talk about not really going too far in the future, but I think it's good for us to really visualize, ourselves down the road and say, hey, if I don't do this, will I end up regretting it towards the end of my life? Because that's, one of the biggest things in life is as you get older, people start to regret the things that they didn't do, and it's little things. They didn't ask out, somebody out on a date, or, they didn't start that business that they wanted to, or they didn't go to school. So, I think it's important that we really focus on, not regretting things and, taking action, even though we are fearful, because I think so many of us go to that negative spot of all that fear where, we should be thinking in our minds, man, this is going to be great, right? So we scare ourselves off. So I think it's important for us to know that. So today we are going to talk about being human. So let me start off with the definition. So it's relating to or characteristic of people or human beings. So I always have like these eye-opening experiences or these mind-opening experiences, however you want to call it. This week I really had to, remind myself that I am human. And, it goes back to, me, living my life as like a perfectionist or, really maybe not even, looking at, my feelings and understanding, where feelings come from. Because I think sometimes, we all bottle up our feelings. We want to be able to say something or do something different, but we just kind of bottle it up and let it go. And then we try to ignore it. Well, for me anyway, I try to ignore it or say, oh, well, you're stronger. You're strong. You can face this. It's no big deal. Right. And, I had to remind myself, and I talked to, my buddy Caleb. Well, he's my best friend, and, he, has to put, things back into perspective sometimes, because, I think as we go through and we're talking out things, I'm like, oh yeah, same thing. And the same thing with my wife. She will point these things out and say, hey, hey, you're human. These things happen, and you're not Superman. You got to remember that everything can't go 100% your way all the time. And, if you're feeling a certain way, there's a reason. So you got to be able to, really sit back and understand why are you having that, that thought process, right? So we've got to be able to process things because I think, as we start to realize, what's going on in our lives, there's really reasons of why we feel a certain way, whether it's, just kind of a protection for you, for yourself, or, looking at these things, I think right now with some of the things that I'm I was struggling with or am struggling with is that, when you look at life and, you have certain situations, that aren't going well, you always want to, try to, for me, I try to look at the positives of everything. But when I'm looking at certain situations and certain things that are going on in my life right now, it's really, going back to understanding your values and your standards of what you will and will not tolerate. And I think that was, that's something that I'm struggling with is that, for me in a certain aspect of my life right now, there are things that I'm kind of putting up with because, sometimes I feel like, oh, not that I sometimes feel like this, but I feel like, maybe I'm kind of backed up against the wall right now. And, when I start to feel like that, I'm like, oh my gosh, why am I feeling like that? And it creates, these thought processes in my mind. And I start to like really just kind of analyze everything. And I'm like, oh, what can I do? How can I, better the situation? And, when I look at it, I've just got to remain calm. And I think sometimes we've got to be, we get so caught up in the emotions of how we're feeling at the time. And, it's great that we feel that way. And, sometimes we can't change things right away. and you've got to be patient. And it always reminds me to to be patient in life, right? I've got to be patient in, the way that things move, right? So when I look at things going on right now, there's I'm in a situation where I'm trying to, create, great things within myself and my career and things like that. And I don't feel like things are really going the way that I thought they would. I'm in a place and an environment that I feel like it's kind of holding me back. And I haven't really quite learned what I want to learn, but or I'm trying to learn, and I'm looking at these things and I'm like, this doesn't really add up to my values. For me personally, I like to have structure, and I got into a situation where there's not a whole lot of structure or direction, and it's kind of chaotic sometimes. And I try not to look at it that way, and I was like, oh, hey, maybe this will pass by. My first couple weeks there, at my new job, I was like, okay, great. A lot of crazy stuff happened. My boss quit and all these other things happened. But I'm looking at it now and I'm like, man, does this get better? And I've been in this situation like I think one other time before, where I was like, oh man, I can't put up with this. Right? I can't hold on to this and keep doing it if it doesn't make sense. So we've got to be able to understand that, sometimes those red flags, you've got to be able to look at them and say, hey, is this right or is this wrong? And, you've got to be able to really evaluate, can I make it better, or can these things get better? And if they can, then, you kind of endure and, push through, or, you start to change your pattern. So, I've kind of been going back and forth with that, and, letting my frustrations kind of boil over, and, kind of holding those in. And, I had to step back and say, hey, Anthony, you're human. You're having these feelings for a reason, and you've got to be able to listen to them. You've got to be able to listen to yourself and, really understand your feelings and understand the things that you want out of life. And, when things don't really add up, again, it comes back down to the reflection of what you'll accept and what you'll tolerate, and the things that you won't, right? And right now the situation, it's not bad. I'm not saying it's terrible, but can it be better? Absolutely. So what can I do to make it better? And that's how I look at things. How can I attack it to make it better, even if the environment doesn't change around me? So I try to, one of the biggest things that I've done in the past is just really focus, and I work hard. I that's one of my biggest things is, I really feel like I work harder than the rest, right? And I think we all have a great, for the most part, most people have a great work ethic, and you've got to be able to push through and really understand the different sides of things. So, I had sat down, I've researched a lot of things to help me get better and have a better understanding of this industry that I'm in, because I've never been in it before. So it comes back down to, getting comfortable being uncomfortable, and really understanding what I need to learn, and say, hey, is this the right path, or, do I move on, or do I continue to, just push through and just hammer through? So just know, I guess what I'm trying to get at today is, really just understand you and understand your feelings, and don't run away from those feelings, because I felt like that's what I was kind of doing, was kind of shutting off and saying, hey, just ignore it, just ignore it. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. And sometimes we just have to, kind of be in, I guess, when, if you can visualize yourself in a room with your emotions, and really, kind of embracing them, and really understanding, and, really just seeing how and what they're trying to show you. And I think that's a big thing with being in touch with ourselves. And that's something that I've learned over, the last 5, 6, 7 years, that, I always have to go back to it. I'm always practicing, right? We've got to be able to practice to create a better life and continue to live a better life. So, when it comes down to it, don't be afraid to question your thoughts. Don't be afraid to, look at different, alternatives, and say, hey, is this the best path? Is this not the best path? And question yourself, right? And, sometimes, it comes back down to what I talked about yesterday with regret. We can look at things logically, but also you've got to be able to feel them within your heart, and feel them within yourself. And you can tell the difference, right? And if you don't feel the difference, that's really just a matter of really just digging in, and, really getting comfortable being uncomfortable. It's very, it's very easy to get caught up in the logical sense of things. And I think that's kind of what I was doing, is over analyzing, and I'm saying, hey, what if this happens? What if this happens? And it creates that, kind of anxious feeling, because you start to create this, this unknown, right? And that's one of the biggest things in life, is that people fear the unknown, so they don't really know what's going on. So I challenge you to be in the present, be present within yourself, be present within the moments of your life, and be present in what you're doing, because that will make life that much easier for you. Remember, when we talk about going back to the simple things, enjoying the simple things in life, and really not looking at, if you're looking at certain situations, you kind of got to look at a bigger scope of things and see all the goods and the bads of everything, versus just this little tiny frame. When you look at the horses that are racing, they have these blinders on, so they're just looking forward. We've got to be able to take those blinders off and really be able to see the big picture. And that's what we've got to do in order to really get comfortable with our emotions and get comfortable with us and within us. That's the best thing that we can do. So, oh man, take a deep breath. Feels good, right? So don't forget that you're human. Challenge yourself. And, you don't always have to be Superman or Superwoman. It comes back down to, just being, one of the things that, I talked about the Caleb about was, he went to California, and, he was like, oh, I'm going to be in California. And that's always been his dream since we, met, was like, hey, I'm going to go to California, enjoy my life, and, do big things in California. And then he ended up, for whatever reason, the circumstances, he wound up back in Phoenix. And, he's like, there was a time of, a couple weeks or, a month or so for me to really just kind of be one with my emotions and say, man, that sucked, right? Or this wasn't that great. So I've got to, he's like, I had to be part of those emotions, and I'm looking at it the same way. You've got to be able to, sometimes you get your butt kicked, and that's what I talk about, right? Is CBDs, character building days. And that's something that we grow and we learn from. And that's how we can always get better, is, these character building, days, these are days that are going to help us get better in the long run. And they might not feel good and feel comfortable right now, but they will get better. And we got to know and trust ourselves that we are going to get better with each lesson we learn. So it's important for you to continue to do that, and know that no matter what, you will be okay, and you will be perfect. You're perfect for you and the situations, and being human is okay. You don't always have to be the strongest, or, really just staying focused on that. So just enjoy that and be who you are. So let me leave you with this quote: communication, the human connection, is the key to personal and career success. And that's Paul J. Meyer. So check out our website, breathemotivation.com. You can find our podcast. You can book a free consultation and service with me to have some one-on-one coaching. I'd love to coach some more people here. So, feel free to, fill my inbox. I love talking to you guys. So I know a lot of people have taken advantage of that already, and I would love to have the chance to speak with you. So also, if you guys have any topics that you guys would like to cover, you have any questions you'd like me to answer on the podcast, I'd love to hear those as well. So keep in touch. I love the communication. I love the positive things that are going on from this community and the opportunities that it's presenting for us to, create this wave of positivity throughout the world. So continue to do that. And as always, remember to breathe motivation and exhale success. I will see you tomorrow on Friday. Thanks.